how does exposure kind of transpose your education journey?
There was a phase or a trend based in Kerala in South India where at a particular time every child in a family ended up taking either engineering or medicine as their undergraduate course after class 12. A lot of information is limited to people who have access to technology.
Welcome to the School of Future podcast number 1, and this is very special because this is a start of a new moment about how we think about education, how our future of education is going to space out, right? Very excited to have both Sadia and Marcel on this episode number 1, and I personally feel that you guys are really qualified to kick off this series, given your experiences, right? So I think I'll go to Marcel first to kind of tell our audience your story so far, right? It's quite inspiring, and we want our audience to also hear about your stories.
All right, absolutely. Thank you for having me on this platform. It's really exciting to speak with you. Yes, a little bit about my story. So originally, I am from Slovakia, and my international education started quite early. When I was actually 15, I got a scholarship to study at a private international high school in Thailand. So at a really quite an early age, I went to study there. And that really inspired me to look at international education. Basically, this has changed my life and also then shaped my career choices after that. After that, I went to the UK to study international relations. And then, well, I was really missing Asia. So I think Asia is where it really is, where the future is really, but it's really dynamic. So I went back. I went to Singapore to study at NUS. And after NUS, actually, I worked for, let's say, cultural diplomacy organization in the education department called the Asia Europe Foundation. There I help students with international student mobility, with cultural exchange, and we organized lots of events from across Asia and Europe. After that, I wanted to be more in the perhaps higher education space. And the next 6 years I've spent at the National University of Singapore, managing projects and also researching. Then that was a tough choice. Do I keep on researching, or do I go into the business kind of space? Then I went for the latter. I did MBA from NUS, and then after that I joined the International Baccalaureate Organization. But again, it's education. It's very interesting. I did it because I did IB in Thailand. I still wanted to be in the higher education space. So thereafter, I joined a company called Study Portals, where I am now. And at Study Portals, we help universities in Asia to bring in international students and to take their brand all across the world and tell students about them, generate interest in their programs, and just overall offer opportunities for students to transparently choose the best degree programs for themselves, something that they will be happy with. So this is in brief my story.
Thank you so much, Marcel. Over to you, Sadia, your story.
Thank you so much, Marcel and Akshay. I mean, Marcel, your career and the pathway has been really very overwhelming to hear, and we are very glad to have you on board. About my pathway, I was born and brought up in Muscat, Oman, though I am a Kerala, I'm an Indian by nationality and I'm from Kerala, but I was born in Muscat and Oman. So we had very limited career options over there. So till class 12, we did our CBSE classes there, post which I decided to come for higher education down to India. And when I came for higher education, I did my engineering from National Institute of Technology in Calcutta, post which I did my MBA from Indian Institute of Management. And then I was working with Amazon for about 2 years, and I resigned, and now I'm managing my own business. So that's my career pathway, but when I'm hearing about Marcel's introduction, there is a lot to do about how he's having international exposure and the fact that he's gone to different places and he's understood the markets in Thailand and in Switzerland and everywhere. On the other hand, in my perspective, the exposure largely has been guided by my parents through the initial years of schooling. After which, the exposure which came through the undergraduate and postgraduate was a lot to do with the personal research and the networking that we had done. So there is a difference between both of our career pathways, but that's what we are all doing really very well, and we are glad to have be on the same boat right now, so we can discuss what the future of education is going to look like now.
Wonderful, Sadia. So interesting to hear about your path as well. Really great.
So, just touching upon that, one common area to both of you, right? So, Sadia spoke about exposure. Like for her, exposure was talking, like about doing in CBSE and then going for an engineering. And Marcel, you said that going to Thailand was kind of a game changer. So let's talk about exposure for a couple of minutes and how important or how does exposure kind of transpose your education journey. Probably I'll start off with Sadia because she's on that track, and then probably I'll come to you, Marcel.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, thank you, Akshay. If we have to discuss about the exposure per se, the situation right now is very different from when I was back in schooling, say around 15 or 18 years before. We had very limited exposure or opportunities to understand what was going there outside the world. The world was not so globalized like how it is today. And a lot of our exposure was usually from, the schools that you're respectively studying in and the mentors that who's guiding you, the principals, the teachers. So it was very limited to our parents and what they knew and what was running in the market. So I'm not sure, Marcel, there was a phase or a trend based in Kerala in South India where at a particular time every child in a family ended up taking either engineering or medicine as their undergraduate course after class 12. And that speaks about the lack of exposure that was there in the society. People were not understanding what the market actually demanded, what were the different avenues that were available. Cut short now, if you come down in the current scenario, that is in the year 24-25, we have the huge influx of social media as well as all the information available online where there are millions of people to guide us.
Yeah, I think study portals is doing a really good job.
Yeah, so where you can guide us, help us get the best exposure, and also help us take the right decisions. At the same time, to identify the students and the target customers also. A lot of information is limited to people who have access to technology, but there might be brilliant students, who are in remote places, but they wouldn't have exposure or access to this network connectivity. And I think institutes like study portals and School of Education is planning to do that. They are trying to find out the right talent, give them guidance on what the exposure would look like, and then help them get the best decision to get them employable in the market.
That's true. I couldn't agree more. That exposure is so different nowadays than what it used to be, but there's still work to be done. When I was 15, certainly in Slovakia, there was a post-communist country. Clearly, even internet was not so widespread. That is one of the missions of study portals, really, to list every single program in the world so that students have the transparency to choose something independently, something that really fits their needs, and they don't need to rely on word of mouth, on agents, and certainly don't have to pay for that information. So it's free in that way. And so that is the exposure about the kind of programs that are there. Also the exposure, often, as you said, we take advice from our parents. The need for education has changed so much in that time from our parents. You're right. Back then, they wanted us to be doctors and engineers and go and study business. Now it's really not about the degree programs. It's becoming increasingly interdisciplinary anyway. So that kind of cross fertilization and careers are no longer linear. I feel that what students really need is to acquire a set of skills that they can then use in their workplace. Because the conditions and what has happened in the workplace, it's what the workplace demands is so different nowadays. And maybe students don't know that, So when it comes to exposure, it's also exposing the idea about what the industry needs so that universities can cater to that. And I feel there is increasingly a gap whereby universities are going one direction and the industry is going other direction. So there's a bit of a mismatch. I feel that now we must prioritize these kind of called meta skills, like adaptability and critical thinking and problem solving, emotional intelligence, even digital fluency. Those are the kind of skills that students really need nowadays. It's no longer about what to learn, what you're teaching students, about actually how to learn. Students increasingly need to become lifelong learners, and it's a skill to learn. It's not about what you teach about, it's about how students should process information and work with them. So I think that the School of Future is doing a great job in terms of actually catering to what the industry needs and helping students have the skills that they need to succeed further in their career that then may not be non-linear or may not be following the template as it used to follow probably 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think, Masu, and in continuation to what you were discussing, where there's a mismatch in what the universities are providing and what the industries are demanding, how do you feel that the universities are adapting to this rapid changing pace of technology and development in the world?
Well, to what we have been seeing in the market and speaking to universities and what's really happening there, we know that they're updating their curricula to actually reflect the emerging trends in the industry, such as AI. Sustainability is becoming such an interesting and important topic. Things like digital entrepreneurship and being able to run business from overseas, from remotely. So there's a growing collaboration between universities and industry partners to provide these kind of real world projects, internships, research, and kind of research opportunities to prepare the students better. But the change can be definitely very slow. The institutions that are not agile and they don't embrace interdisciplinarity and they are not experimental are lagging behind. That's where I feel the difference with School of Future is, because they are moving nimbly, they're experimental in their approach, and they are dynamic to respond to what the industry really needs. Also, probably we can say that after COVID, the adoption of hybrid learning model has really changed as well. So this continues to actually evolve in the post-pandemic education, and that's good because nowadays a lot of the teams are actually managed remotely. I mean, we also need that skills to be able to effectively use digital tools to manage remotely. Very few companies now work 5 days a week, and there's some remote element, if not because of that flexible working arrangement, then because the teams are global. So that's another kind of skill that universities need to adopt to.
I think in this aspect, School of Future is also doing a wonderful job because just having a mere look at the curriculum, we try to understand how they are trying to adopt the best practices across the world. They've actually looked into the curriculums and the schedules across universities and schools throughout the world, and they've adopted the best modules which would be relevant to the current industry requirements, so that our students will be up to the mark, irrespective of the fact that the universities are finding it really very difficult to adapt to new changes or technologies into their curriculum.
Yeah. So I think everyone on this panel, right? So we went to one of the best B schools possible, right? And I just want to put this at, to ask this, right? If we were to go back and change a couple of things in the schools that we went to, like Sadia went to IIM, which is the best B school in India. We went to NUS, which is largely regarded on a high pedestal in Asia Pacific region. So what would be like two things, like if you were to go back to your IIM, like these are the two things that I want to change, or based on how you've seen the future evolve, what would these two things be? Right? Like open to both of you, like whoever wants to go first.
Asa, would you like to take that?
Okay, so in terms of what I would like to change in the education that I have received, though, the kind of changes I would like to see, it's really more around purpose-driven education as well, in a way that when the industrial revolution happened, that that there were like the steam engines and people think, okay, that's gonna take our jobs away. So it took a lot of the manual work away, right? Then when the computers happen and the industrial revolution with digital spaces, people are thinking, okay, it's going to take away a lot of the brain power, and that's what AI is doing. So what is really left? I think what is left is the empathy. It's what makes us human at the core. I think that's where the focus should be, because how to lead teams, how to motivate teams, how to be socially conscious, how to be purpose driven. I think a more of an emphasis on these soft skills would have been beneficial in my education. I think that hard skills are really important too, but ultimately those can be also learned online from there's many free resources in terms of that. Nowadays employers also teach that as part of on the job training. So that's kind of purpose driven learning, because that fosters the motivation within you, what you want to do. It also leads to better engagement and ultimately long-term success, and not just academic achievements. I think that's where the focus should be, and it's shifting there slowly it is. So I would like to see those, they explore more technologies that actually enable flexible learning paths and skill-based credentials as well. I really feel that there should have been more engagement among the teams and more experimental learning. I feel there was not enough of that. And teaching us how to use technology and work side by side with technology, rather than just use it as a sidekick or something like that, because it's going to be more integral.
Marcel, I mean, I'm really agreeing with what you said. But if I had to say, I would be speaking from an Indian scenario because I did my MBA from a B school based out in India. And one of the major challenges or the metrics a person is performing well in a B school is given by whether he gets placed in a company X or Y within the 2 year period. So that's the only major aim a person has when you go to B school, at least in the Indian scenario. They focus on the education part or the fact that you are acquiring this many skill sets is not given importance. More importance is given to the fact that okay, you're getting placed by the summer placements or at least by the end term and final placements. So what usually happens is these placements are driven by the placement institutes and firms and alumni associations based in the colleges. And unlike outside India, where networking is given really very importance, out here in India we are lacking that very much. So the fact that you need to have constant connect with people across different domains, not just during your college years, but even post college, also while working, and have a continuous connect with your alumni is really very important, and that needs to be fostered and cultivated. The fact that today Marcel from Singapore, Akshay from Kochi, and me from Trivandrum, we are connecting is because we are networking with each other, and all three of us are from different backgrounds. So the power of networking needs to be given a lot of more importance. Is one thing that I feel. And second thing is, personally, whenever we are studying in a B school, everyone is of the understanding that it's a postgraduate program and you would like to reach a particular milestone in your career step. So this particular goal that you are achieving is intrinsically driven and you are focusing only about your goals in those 24 or 18-month course that you're having in the B school. But in any particular organization or firm or a startup that you go and you work into, there is very little that you can achieve alone. Everything that you achieve in a company or an organization is only when you have a broad person next to you and a finance guy next to you and an HR person with you. So the focus on team building and team leadership and building those skill sets needs to be fostered more and more important. But throughout the schooling years, it's only just about you, your marks, your grades, and the fact that you have to work in a team is often forgotten. And once they come into an organizational setup, then it becomes really very difficult for them to build those relationships and achieve those goals. So I think these two needs to be really built, at least in an Indian scenario, so that we can achieve better KPIs and metrics in the doing years.
I think that's a very interesting segue, right? Because she was talking about social connections and networking. And these are like tying into your earlier points about soft skills, right, Marcin? And I think a lot of us miss out these things in the larger scheme of, like how do you develop the right social skills, understanding culture. When I first met Marcin, he's coming from like an entirely different culture, and he can speak Hindi, by the way.
Okay.
Is so and how language, culture, all these ties together. Like these are nuances that actually bring humans together and can help them achieve their highest level of output or whatever, right? So I would want to like take this to the segue of human connections and the social aspect of it. I think Marcel has spent a lot of time, other than his activity, he spends a lot of time with immigrant workers in Singapore. Like I think every other weekend he takes them. Like there's a lot of social impact that Marcel, is giving back. So Marcel, like just quickly touch upon that area, right? And also like what is your intrinsic motivation there, and what are the skills which you have, which is enabling you to like give back to the society?
As I said, I think if steam engines took our physical work to a degree, and if AI is slowly taking the mental work, it's really the heart that really remains, and that's what makes us human. I feel that I do want to foster those human connections. I think that's going to be increasingly important. Like building cultural intelligence, empathy, and just kind of deeper understanding of these diverse perspectives. It's always enriching. I mean, as Sadia said, it's no longer it should have never been really about the individual. It's really about the team. Um, you know, if you succeed, you never succeed alone. And why would you want to? It's always a team effort. It's always takes a village, right, to raise a child, to even make one successful as well. So I'm just putting myself out there to all sorts of different scenarios and situations just to experience the diversity, to have diversity of perspectives, and to make sure that I'm not living in echo chambers and in bubbles where I just keep on hearing, you know, the same thing over and over again. I want to hear perspectives. So yeah, it is sometimes easier just to hang out with your own tribe, with your own clique. You know, it's easier, but that's the point about going outside of the comfort zone and trying having a conversation with somebody you wouldn't maybe have had, you know, easily. But you understand that at the core, we are all human and we all come with different sets of beliefs and values, which ultimately makes us better leaders as well. At my time at NUS MBA, I was also a president of the Diversity and Inclusion Club. And there I understood that, yeah, diversity is important, but that's not nearly enough. You know, you can bring different kind of people around the table, but that's not enough. You need to make them speak to each other. And that's where inclusion actually comes in. And inclusion doesn't come in unintentionally. You have to create spaces so that people feel included and feel safe to open up and to start communicating with each other. So in that way, that cultural exposure is very important because you want to have diversity of perspectives. Otherwise, and I mean that's how best ideas come about anyway. It's when different people with different perspectives come together. And Sadia, you talked about it, right? I mean, you have people from the finance department, from the marketing department. We all have come with different hats, but we need to communicate to each other. And very often, I can see companies work in silos, and that's a big issue. You know, it's really that communication across departments, across different functions and verticals, that's when the magic happens, basically.
I had to tell something about this muscle while I was working in Amazon. So we have not inculcated the skill set of working within a team. You know, cut across 6 years of my education in UG and PG, I've been only worried about Savit Siraj's career path, and suddenly I'm working in a legacy firm, which is, you know, the top firm of the world. And when you work in a big firm like Amazon, they have certain leadership principles that make sure that, you know, you don't get, it's the same fact, you know, though you are diverse, you're included into the team as well as you bring in the results and metrics that is desired by the team heads and leads. Now, these leadership principles are often designed by the top managers and leaders and Jeff Bezos and everyone, and every organization has its own leadership principles and everything. But one thing what I understood is that in my previous firm, it's not enough to have intentions. You know, good intentions take you very little. Like it matters a lot when you have better actions for those intentions that you intend to act upon. So the fact that, okay, you have an intention, you would like to work very well with the team, but you are lacking on the skill set of working with the team, then there's no point in having that particular intention. And so just in extending on this, if you visualize all the products that is running in the market, you know, be it Swiggy or Amazon or Netflix and Instagram, Meta, whatever be it, all these products are catered to customers in such a way that they need to be focusing on their life from an individual perspective. And now we are dealing with students who are living this particular life in the Gen Z and Alpha category. So throughout, they are in that particular mindset that the whole world is catering only to them as an individual. And now you get these type of people to work in our organizations, or you know, you bring them to our institutes and study portal and future of education, to get their whole head ramped about, you know, that you are not alone and you need to work with the team. That's going to be a huge challenge, and I really feel that's where we need to align ourselves in, and we need to really change the whole perspective of how education should be delivered to these students.
And I think, Marcel, you were connecting this point, right? You're talking about how getting out of your comfort zone. We are talking about the social impact aspect where you spend time with, different migrant workers who come into Singapore. I think he spends some time weekly. So, like, how did you find that, right? How did you have the courage to say that I'm going to step out of my, suit and boot and then go out there in the ground and then, talk to people, learn from them, get inspiration? How did that all start, and what is the energy you drive out of that?
I mean, as for the volunteering aspect, that's always been a drive within me, feeling that, you know, there are people just who are disadvantaged by the very fact of where they have been born, and which kind of families and which kind of countries they have been born into, um, which is none of their fault. I've been maybe privileged in the way that I've been born into, in Europe, and maybe in a good family. So I feel that there's something is not in balance, and I can help to kind of pass on that privilege that I certainly have to others, and to kind of work with it to help them out. Um, that's always been a drive within me. And then, it's hardly a one-way street. I certainly don't feel like I'm helping them out, and that's where it ends. They help me out as well immensely because they keep things in perspective for me. I learned a lot about their resilience. A lot of the migrant workers in Singapore are facing unique challenges where they are not being paid enough, or they're not being paid the salary sometimes when they get injuries. It's a very difficult process for them. So that resilience that comes from their stories really helps me to see my issues in a much more in a perspective where I feel, okay, what are my problems in comparison to theirs? And it's not really courage. I feel that they so few people reach out to them that if you really do, they make it very easy, and in time it just becomes second nature. I feel that there's always been a realization in me that volunteering is something that I ought to do, rather than there's something just like I do for the sake of, I don't know, like putting on my CV or something. And then also, experiences and learning come from all sorts of different places. Certainly universities are one place, but there are internships, there are volunteering, daily interactions that where we just keep on learning. I mean, opportunities to learn are all around us. So I feel that to be a well-rounded individual, you need to learn in different kind of settings, not just the academic setting. And probably outside of the school, that's where you hone those soft skills. But now it's like changing, and students are being given the chances to do this kind of work as well. So I always felt that it was my social responsibility rather than something I did out of having too much free time or something like that.
Marcel, any interesting story that you can share of a particular instance where, a story where you learned so much, which was kind of equivalent to one principle that you learned at your MBA? And I'm coming to you also, like outside your academic this thing, like some interaction, some person that kind of inspired you and taught things.
I mean, there's plenty, and I guess they all. I mean, a lot of them do actually come from the migrant workers communities. The story of incredible resilience and adaptability. Adaptability is really a skill that is so essential because nowadays, as I said, careers are not really linear, and we need to embrace uncertainty, and we need to stay curious, and we need to learn to pivot. In life, some things go right, some things do not go really right, and we need to be able to bounce from that and learn on the failures. A story of one Tamil worker who was here who got an injury, and I've noticed how he was just casually showing me photos on his phone about photos that of his drawings. So he was just drawing and sketching out, and for him it was just a hobby, something quite casual. But I saw like, okay, this is really pretty. This is really really nice. Let me support you with that, and I got him enrolled for free in the local arts institute that opened up the studio for him, and that he could attend classes. And what happened later, that he became so good, he started selling that art. And when his case was solved in Singapore, he went back to Tamil Nadu and he got a job at an IB school to teach art.
Wow.
And so now he was an art teacher in an IB school, which is extremely prestigious. So I saw that. I always feel like I only showed him the path or the bridge, but he walked that path. It is completely his hard work, and he didn't feel victim of his situation. He actually took chance of the opportunities that have been given to him, and he really worked on himself, and he pivoted, from being a migrant worker to something completely different, with a little bit of help, a little bit of guidance, but he was the one doing all of the hard work. He really worked on himself, and I thought that is such a good lesson about how to turn adversity into opportunity.
Amazing. I think at the School of Future also, this is where, right, when the right people give the right direction, lives change and the impact is not measurable, right? It's like, this is such an inspiring story, right? From being like a migrant labor to becoming an Ivy School art teacher. And this is basically like, if we can create 50 such stories, then we all can be proud saying that, School of Future has done something. Do you have such something like?
So it wouldn't be adaptable to maybe say Gen Z or Gen Alpha. What I would like to say similarly would be in the Gulf scenario. So we've seen this recent trend where if X number of employees, they don't fill in the latest AI or tech skills, there is this practice of firing them, rather than giving them a chance to upskill or, giving them a chance to lead. But then we also know that human beings have, like our Marcel has rightly told, that the highest quotient of adaptability. We are organisms who can adapt into any ecosystems and situations. We can live in Antarctica, so be in the Sahara deserts and anywhere in the world. And it is literally the survival of the fittest theory. And there was this one employee in our organization who had committed 30 years into the finance department. So his basics were very strong. But when the organization was expanding, we had to migrate into the tech elements and we had to bring in AI and tech elements into it. So here's a person who's almost 50, 55-year-old who does not understand the basics of coding. And he is now currently bombarded with a new software, a new ERP technology, saying that this is going to be a platform for working for your books and accounts tomorrow. Had it been any other organization, what I would have understood was they would not have given him a chance to learn or upskill, and they would have gone into the best practice of fire and hire a new one. But this individual was so persistent, and he said that he wanted a chance to learn. He knew the basics, and it was only a small minor skill set that he had to adapt. And cut short to today, he himself emails the ERP team and gets the basic codes and the SQL codes and then installs them on the server so that he gets the books and graphs according to what he needs. So it's the same thing, if there is a person who really wants to do well and we can guide that person in such a way that if his intention is meeting with the skill set that we can provide them, then they can continue to offer their best that they are always doing.
Yes. So just summarizing it, so it is the right direction, the right energy, the right attitude, and obviously the mindset to put in work and not give up, right? Like summarizing both your stories.
Yes.
And yeah, this is what, so we want to bring in, the best people, industry leaders who can direct our batch of students who will, then get into leadership positions.
We touched upon exposure, like the beginning part of our conversation, and then we touched upon how there is a gap between what the industry requires and what the university can provide. And then we touched upon how universities must focus more on soft skills and team management and building activities. And then Marcel also spoke about how it's really very important to get out of your comfort zone, and how it's really very important to get everyone into the team, including diversity and inclusion. So, Akshay, I would like to understand what went into your head while designing this School of Future program, and how is this going to be the best option available for the students out there right now?
So, I think the thought here is about, so I come from the industry, right? I've been in the operator role for quite some time now. Like, have led an organization with about 800 people. And so what we realized is that we are not getting, there are people who are really good, they have good pedigree on their CVs. But when it comes to the real work, like everything that you guys touched upon, right? How do you collaborate with another team? What are the soft skills of, having empathy, having respect, having, working together? And it was a huge challenge looking from the top of an organization. And then we thought, what is it that is missing, right? So a lot of them, like you rightly said earlier, are focusing only on grades. They're focusing only on what is the best. How can I get into an Amazon? How can I get into Google? This is the lens through which we learn. So that's where, interaction with a lot of people and how education is changing, which is changing quite drastically, right? We don't need people to do a lot of things that we used to do 6 months back, thanks to the evolution of AI. So that's where we were thinking about creating a program that encompasses elements of all these things, right? You have hands-on, experience. You have industry experts coming and directing you, giving you the right direction. Also telling you about social skills, about impact, about being, a good human being at the end of it, ethical leadership, things like that. So this is how it came together, and also discussing with a lot of leaders. All of them thought that this was a necessity of the time. And that's how School of Future came about. I think we are kind of reaching the last segue, and then the question here is, what does the future of education look like, right? Very exciting. A lot of people are discussing and debating about this. Nobody has a clear answer, right? So, but these are all perspectives, right? Like, I feel one way about it, Marcel could feel based on his experience, and you coming from a corporate like an Amazon, your perspective would be different. But yeah, let's get there, right? Marcel, what does the future of education look like to you?
Question, of course, and it's being discussed a lot in conferences. Even like, do education institutions still make sense? Does the model that they have been working for hundreds of years, does it still work? Is it still relevant? In today's society, I think that the future of education um, looks that it's really revolving around skills rather than degrees. It's not really what you know on paper. It's really also about building that portfolio of experiences rather than chasing a certain degree. So it's internships, it's volunteering, it's side projects, it all counts. I think that this is what will make students ready for the demands of the job market. It's also becoming more democratized. It's becoming more accessible and tailored to individual learners. I feel that students don't have to now stick to just one path. They can design. They should be able to design the course or the kind of learning journey according to their strengths and wishes and desires. So I think that's also one way, that the flexibility. I mean, there's things like flexi masters that is now being very popular. You don't have to take off a year of your time. You can do it, in a part-time setting. You can do it in chunks as well as um, this is the way it's changing as well. So the students should have more power to shape the learning journeys. And also, really, I think that the future really belongs to people who are creating, who are problem solving, and who are global citizens. So education should be evolving to support all of that, to support aspirations of students, to teach them how to learn and how to be good global citizens rather than just those hard skills and kind of memorizing and this kind of old model that used to be here with us for a long time. So adaptability, flexibility, and supporting students with the kind of student journey and learning experiences that they want to create and tailor to themselves.
Similarly, I mean, earlier education would be very limited to the geography or to the experience that you were exposed to. But right now, we are living in a globalized economy and a globalized society. So it's really very important that the school of future and the future of education would converge into the child, making him or her into a globalized citizen. Because you are now not going to compete with someone based in your next door neighborhood, but with a person who's based out somewhere across the world. And I'm 100% sure that almost everyone is going to have the same skill sets. So what sets you apart from the other person would be these facts. What are the leadership skills that you possess, and how can you manage a team? How well can you critically analyze the situation, and how can you take judgments based on different situations? So these minor skill sets and soft skills one must really focus on. The intellect part and the academics part is already taken care of, irrespective of any stream that they're coming from. Be it IB, CBSE, ICSE, state syllabus. Almost every student is now equally intelligent. We have all skill sets and tools available that a child can easily study and adopt. But what is really important is the fact that how he can take all this together and become a globalized citizen and work together in a globalized economy. So that's what the future of education is going to look like. Today it might be AI, tomorrow it might be another technology, God knows what. But this is how it's going to be.
Yeah. I think like I'm a firm believer that like earlier like we discussed like when fire was invented, when industrialization happened, human beings survived, right? And I'm very optimistic that our education system, everybody will evolve to kind of fit into what is happening in the future, and our future generations will be like much smarter, much efficient to do these things, and I'm very optimistic that the education sector is moving or is trying to move in the right direction. So I think we will bring this to a close. So Marcel, अब इंडिया कब आ रहे हो?
Brayo?
कब आ रहे हो?
कब? भविष्य में पता नहीं कब.
That's great.
Soon. जल्दी मैं आऊंगा.
See. I mean, we should learn from him.
Yeah.
Definitely.
He can speak much he can speak Hindi
I think people from Kerala
should learn from. So yeah, looking forward to hosting you at the School of Future in our sessions, with our leaders who we are building Marcel. Looking forward to that. Sadia as well. It'll be really exciting when a bunch of 50 students come in and then they get to meet you guys and have a much deeper conversation than this. Right? This is just a trailer, but in person when you can interact, they can learn much more from you guys. So thank you so much for taking out time for this. Looking forward to your association in the School of Future.
My pleasure. It's been really great discussing this with you, and thank you for having me. It was really enjoyable. Really liked it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcel. It really is the need of the hour to discuss something really like this, and I'm glad that there is a solution now being created on the same. So, with all the best minds on board, let's hope to create the best solution. Thank you so much, Marcel, and thank you, Akshay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, bye bye. Thank you so much, Marcel. Bye.
Bye.